just like this, we're live with Cathy Cole. Cathy, welcome to Cutting Through the Noise, the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I think in Missoula, coming into Missoula, especially at the University of Montana, taking on a role of enrollment and admissions, that's a big role.
Yeah, it is.
So you've stepped right in, and you've been in Missoula how long now?
Just about 14 months.
Great. And the city itself, how is the city treating you?
Oh, we love it here. My whole family does. So, yeah, we fit right in.
Excellent.
It's been awesome.
Excellent. And I thought having you on the show today would be really cool because you've spent time in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Places very different from Missoula, where a lot of people know and love Missoula and market Missoula and can market to Missoula. But coming to Missoula with some different perspectives from previous universities that you've been at and even previous careers. So I kind of want to start with your career as a reporter. And I read that, you were looking for a job where maybe indoors was a little bit more comfortable, but I'm curious kind of how you got started in reporting and if there's anything about that career that you sort of long for or miss.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny how I started in reporting was kind of the fault of my freshman comp teacher. I actually went to my alma mater to become an early elementary school teacher. And after I took freshman comp, the woman who was teaching that really encouraged me to go work for the student newspaper. And there was no turning back after that for me. I rose up through the ranks. I was editor-in-chief for 2 years of my college newspaper and just loved it. Once that's in your skin, I don't think it ever leaves you. So I just loved that. And immediately after I left college, I was hired by the Miami Herald to be their beat reporter for the Florida Panthers, which was their ice hockey team.
Okay.
It was just coming into the state. They'd never had a hockey team before. And since I had played for 15 years, they thought that would be perfect for me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the day I got to Miami, their beat reporter for the Dolphins quit, and they asked me just to take that beat over temporarily, but it was a permanent gig for about 4.5 years. And
Miami Dolphins.
And I learned football from Dan Marino and Don Shula, and it was really, truly the best kind of basis for a career in marketing and higher ed that I could have had, because it taught me how to take really huge topics and break them down for lay people.
Yeah.
And so it was just an awesome career. It did get to be a little bit out of hand when I was out of pocket with my family for 9.5 months out of the year, and
yeah.
That just gets tough after a while, and I really did want to be home on the weekends, and I did want to be home for holidays. I'd had a child at that point and just thought, I'm ready to be done. So I eased into higher education and really have never looked back. I do miss on Sundays when I'm watching football. I do miss being right there in the moment, but
being a part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, NFL, there's nothing entry level about that. That's not the Toledo, single A baseball team.
It is not the Mud Hens.
You're in there.
You're in there.
Is that actually the Toledo single A baseball team?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's amazing.
I'm from Detroit.
Okay. So these are, if anybody has a sports statistic that you want, Cathy apparently is the person to go to. Well, that's great. And I liked what you said about being a reporter and sort of condensing stories and making people understand topics that they might not be familiar with.
Yep.
I've heard HubSpot hires journalists.
Yeah.
People that major in journalism. They might prefer that over somebody that majors in marketing because they've been telling stories, and they can take, let's look at this immunization lab and what are they doing and how does that work, and let's present it to people who might need to be educated about that. And even though they didn't go to school to be a doctor,
right,
they're now articulating what they do there, which is really cool.
Right. And that's most of my staff right now are former journalists, because we can tell stories, and that's what we've been trained to do. And so it does help tremendously.
Totally. Let's talk about marketing higher ed.
Yeah.
Because there are 4,000 plus universities in the country.
Mm-hmm.
We work with clients in industries where there's 4,000 plus of them in the world, and they have to tell a story. We work with a sweatshirt company. They make really cool sweatshirts. Guess what? There's a lot of other sweatshirt companies in the world. So how do you differentiate, or how do you approach, let's say, a new university that you're walking in for the first day, first month, first 100 days? What's your strategy in determining that value proposition, that thing that makes that place special?
So I listen a lot. One of the first things I do at any institution that I happen to be a part of, I do a listening tour. I meet with the deans, I meet with the faculty, I meet with students, especially alumni. I spend a lot of time with them, and I listen to what their experience has been with the institution and what makes us different from any other institution. And similar themes always bubble to the top, always. I've been at 5 institutions, and that has never changed. And so once I do that listening tour, then I bring together the marketing arm of whatever. We're lucky enough to have some marketing folks buried within the colleges, and so they all come to the table, and then we really start to distill it on a marketing basis and value proposition and really talking about what differentiates us. And from there we start to build the marketing plan on how we're going to do it. But if you don't talk to people and you don't listen to what they have to say about their experience at the institution, you're never going to get to the bottom of what makes this place special. And that's what we do.
I think that's a great answer. What happens when you start hearing some comments that sound like cliches? That you've been at 5 universities now, and so the things that people are telling you differentiate the university are things that perhaps differentiate every university. Our class size. We have an interlibrary book exchange. You can get any book from any library in the country. Well, that's neat, but I think a lot of libraries have this. Do libraries still have books? Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. They do.
And things along those lines.
Then you dig deeper.
You have to dig deeper.
Yeah, you just got to ask the right questions. And some of that just comes with experience. I'm a much better marketer now, as I am in my early 50s. I'm much better than I was when I was in my early 20s, and I know more about what to ask. And when people start to just rely on those cliches, there's much more to their story. And so we can start to ask some questions about, relationships that they have with faculty or whatever it might be. And then you really do start to get the real story about their experience on campus. So it's just knowing what to ask and how to ask it.
Yeah. What have you found Montana high school students care about?
Montana high school students really care about academic rigor. They want to go to a place that's going to challenge them. They want to go to a place that's going to care about them as human beings. They don't want to go someplace where they're not going to be seen as a human being. They really want that one-on-one connection with someone on campus. And the other thing they want is an outcome that they can realize within a certain time frame, and that outcome will impact the rest of their lives. So because Montana students are very pragmatic, they don't want to go someplace and invest all this money if they're not going to get something out of it. So we really talk about outcomes when we're speaking to high school juniors and seniors, and especially their parents. If you're going to make this investment with us at the University of Montana, then you're going to expect to get this out of it. And we have the alumni stories to back it up, that these things really are going to happen for you. And that goes a long way.
Yeah. No, that's great. Today it seems like when you hear about the student debt crisis, that stuff permeates down, of course, into high schoolers, and they're thinking, okay, I don't want to be in those shoes.
Right. They don't.
When you're building a team to help communicate these messages, what sort of things do you look for in, whether it's a new graduate or a seasoned professional when they're looking to join your team? What sort of things do you help spot? Like, this could be a really great marketer, a great member of our team, and fit in nicely here.
Right. So I'm always looking for good storytellers, folks who know how to dig down and kind of get the real story. I'm looking for people who can multitask, who are not just good at social media, but can also help us write content for the web, or who can go interview students and help us find the right outlet for that. I'm looking for people who have new ideas. Really, that's probably, that and storytelling are my two big asks of people. I want to make sure that we're not ever stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I don't want, because the platforms change so regularly in the way that we communicate with students, I don't want us to ever be behind the 8 ball.
Right.
And so when I'm interviewing people and when I'm talking to anybody who really wants to join my team, I want to know what they know about what's coming up and what the next big thing is going to be. And that really helps sway me as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Multitasking, I think, is key in higher ed, right? There's a lot of hats. One week, if you're a recruiter, you're on the road talking to high schoolers in Sydney, Montana, and the next you're giving a presentation to 50 students at the university, and then you're using Excel to figure out the most important data point of these applicants.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of data, how do you look at data in higher ed? Is it 90% of what you think about? Is it 10%? Is it a data point of many other data points that you use? How do you work with all of this data that is higher ed and demographics of your students?
Kyle, that is 100% of what I do and what I think about. Without data, I'm dead in the water. I can't make decisions unless I have good data coming in and good analytics behind that. Actually, probably a majority of my staff right now are data scientists who can really help us pull that data and then analyze it. I don't know anybody in higher ed today, either of my roles, either enrollment management or strategic communications, that isn't relying almost 100% on data to help make informed decisions. So the very first thing I do in the morning is pull up my numbers. I look at all of that. I look at how we're performing, not only in enrollment, but which of our communications have gone out and performed well, which one of our marketing campaigns has done well, or what hasn't gone well, so we can change it that day. That's how I start my day. I refer to it pretty often throughout the day, and then certainly before I go home at night, I'm looking at those numbers again to see if we've made significant gains throughout that day.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So it's safe to say you spend a lot of time with data.
A lot of time.
A lot. So data is useful a lot of times for telling you what's happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be tough to forecast the future using data.
Right.
So I'm curious how you and your team decide, okay, here's a new social media platform, or here's a new region which we've never sent somebody before, or we've never targeted, West Texas. Maybe you are, but maybe you're not. And so how do you decide, let's give this a try, or let's venture into these uncharted waters because we don't have much data to tell us yes or no?
So we don't have the data personally. I mean, the university doesn't have that data, but we have data sources that will tell us how we'll play in those areas. We have national resources that will tell us that. And so we don't really make a move unless we check all of that out. And then we'll do some A/B testing before we hit that region.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, this year, Texas was a big kind of question mark for us. So we did some initial research through data. We did some A/B testing and softened the market a little bit. And then that's one of our biggest areas of growth this year for us. I mean,
oh, wow.
Yeah, like 39% of our
really?
Applicants right now are from Texas. So there are ways for us to do that, and we're getting better at it all the time. And so we may not have the data right now, but we're getting it, and then we have national sources that we can go to, and they are very accurate.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. what advice would you have for somebody that's looking to get into marketing or into, well, let's say into higher ed? They're listening and they say, this sounds kind of cool. It might be something that I'm interested in getting involved in. Recruitment. I loved college, so maybe I'd love this role. What advice would you have for someone like that?
I've never left college, so it's pretty cool. Just apply for jobs in higher education. There's a couple really great job sites, highered.com, higheredjobs.com, and the Chronicle of Higher Education always has jobs. If you have a connection to a particular institution, check their jobs page, or if you know somebody at an institution, see if you can intern or extern with them. That's a great foot in the door. I don't know anybody in higher ed right now who isn't looking for good people. We'll train anybody if they have, the core skills, critical thinking, great writer, somebody who can communicate well in person. And other than that, we can train them on anything.
Yeah, if they don't know how to look up transcripts, you can teach them this role.
We can teach
you can show them that.
Yeah. And in my areas, we always look for people who are compassionate and understand that the student comes first, and we've got to help them. That's our number one priority. Work can get done in between students, but the students are why we're here, and so that always is a big tell that I'm looking for. But yeah, if you want to get into higher ed, there are a lot of ways to do it, and we are always looking for good people.
Yeah.
And it is the best career ever. It is the best career.
Higher ed.
Yeah. The best.
It's pretty fun. We were talking just before the podcast about some of my experiences higher ed, and looked back very fondly on them.
Yeah.
And you learn a ton.
You do. And
I got my graduate degree paid for. Like, find the right school, and you can continue your education, and you can get training, and it's pretty amazing.
It is.
Any books that you might recommend for folks? Do you have a favorite marketing book, or just book in general about, hey, here's strategy, or anything along those lines?
Oh, if you saw my office, I have probably 500 books.
Plenty of books.
Yeah, plenty of books.
So choosing one might be a challenge.
It's hard. I'm a really big believer in leadership books, and reading those never really points you in the wrong direction. I think find a leadership book that fits your style and read it. Find books on critical thinking. Those are extraordinarily helpful. There's anything by Seth Roden, if you are in marketing, is valuable to read. He just cuts to the chase in every one of his books. So, he's amazing. I just think anything you can get your hands on and read.
Yeah, read.
Read. It just helps so much.
I think you find a lot of people in leadership roles, they didn't invent. I think it's, what's the saying? Great artists steal good artists, or amazing artists copy, or something like that. That you pull these little pieces of information from all of these books to form really your own leadership style. But it's not, you didn't build that style from the ground up. It's fed from all the research and reading that you've done. So that's really cool. Well, we'll have to get a picture of the 500 books, and we can put it in the show notes. You have no idea. It's like, are they neatly organized by color and size, or are they is it like
they're neatly organized.
Okay, there you go. Okay. I'm trying to imagine the office now.
Yeah.
Very cool. And when we think about, I kind of wanted to ask this question because I feel like a lot of universities do this differently. So I'm curious about your philosophy here. Is when a student, the enrollment office or the admissions office or new student services, they're working with a student right up until sort of the day that they say, okay, I'm in. And then the orientation happens, and then sort of they focus on the next class. Whereas in other businesses, it's like they have teams where, okay, now we're in the client or customer success team, making sure that this customer is happy and they stay. and stay a customer and they stay a student perhaps. But what's your philosophy on that handoff, and what does that look like? Because you're working in the terms of the customer journey, somebody who's never heard of the University of Montana before, never been to, I'm here, I'm enrolled, and now I'm majoring in this amazing program. But there's a lot of steps in communication in between there.
Absolutely. So I am very lucky to have a partner, the Vice Provost for Student Success, Sarah Swager, and she came on board not long after I did. And so we've really made this a partnership, and we don't hand off really until the middle of their freshman year to Sarah's shop fully. We communicate with the students really until about this time. We keep the communication going, and we keep giving advice and helping them to do that, and so is Sarah. But we've completely changed orientation now so that it's not just those couple days in the summer when they come to campus and they take care of business. We've moved that to the spring, and so students come and they meet with us in the spring and they get enrolled in classes and do all that. But then the week before classes start, they do new student orientation, and it is 7 full days. The first 3 are a Big Sky experience where they're broken up into cohorts of 25, and they go out and they accomplish a project. They paint bear paws, they clean the M or paint the M, or they learn about school traditions, or they go out and last year they did a show for Log Jam out at the Kettle House.
Oh, wow.
So they do these really cool things, and they bond in these groups of 25. Then they come back to campus, and the next 4 days we have a mini semester, and we break them up into different cohorts based on their major. And they go to a class, take a lab, take a final, write a paper. They break up with their significant other and have to go to the counseling center. And so we do truly cram a whole semester into these 4 days. And they get to meet another cohort of people and
Cool.
interact with people on campus. And so that's one way that we really help them find some common touch points on campus. But then after that, we keep communicating with them every couple days so that they know that there's all these people on campus who care and want to be a part of their lives. And so far, it has been tremendous. We have not experienced the melt that we usually do where people drop out.
Yeah.
And it's just been really good. And with Sarah's shop, we're transitioning them onto campus, and then we've got this big handshake, and then they take them the rest of the way with advising and all of that. So it's been really good.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing program.
Yeah.
The mini semester. Now, do students then say, "Oh, wait, is the next semester also 4 days, or is it 15?"
No.
What?
We were pretty specific.
Pretty specific. You articulate that clearly.
Yeah.
Here's the expectation.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Kathy, was there anything that I didn't ask you that you're thinking, "Oh, I wish Kyle had asked me this," or "I hope he asks me about this"?
So the only question you haven't asked me is, how is enrollment?
Yes, how is enrollment? Sometimes I don't know if that's an okay question to ask here. Yeah. How are we looking?
So, last fall we stabilized the incoming class. We had more students who had paid at census than we had the year before, which was really good. And then our retention was up 3 points. We have every indication right now is that we are going to continue that pattern. Right now, our apps are up over where they were this time last year, which is really good news.
It's a great indicator.
Yeah, we're about to surpass admits for this time last year, so that's good news. We're seeing much more engagement when we're going out to schools, so that's good news.
Yep.
And students are retaining at much higher numbers. So, it's looking good. It's taking a village to do this. It's taking the entire campus, and it's really taking the community. So we're super happy that Missoula is such a part of our recruitment and retention at the institution. We really couldn't do it without folks like you and the mayor, who writes a letter to every student who's admitted. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so it really does take a village, and we've turned a corner, and it feels really good.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And Missoula gets behind the university. We felt it since day one. It's funny in Montana, for those who aren't from here, when you drive outside of Missoula, you sort of have to travel a ways until the next city center.
Yep.
There's really no sprawl or suburbs of Missoula. And so it is sort of okay, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're here in this mountain valley together.
Yep.
And so that's exciting news to hear. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Cathy, this has been a delight. We really appreciate you being on. I know that the calendar is booked when you're in your position. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. This has been great.